Hey, it's Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have a lot to bring you up to date on. It's been an exciting couple of days, hasn't it? I got my notes right here. First off, I just want to say, kind of reiterating what I said on Friday when the big news dropped. I was anxious or skeptical when that whole New York Times press release thing came out, and I'm just here to tell you that this is not the end game for the Bombshell Commission lawsuits. There are a lot of things that still have to line up for this to go into a place. So I've just been astonished by the vast number of people that are out there doing news stories on YouTube like I do. But many of you know that I've been covering this story for like a year or more. Thank you so much for being with us. And also thank you so much for all of the new subscribers we've gained in the last 4 or 5 days. I think what we saw happen on Friday is pretty much everyone in the media world and a lot of people in the real estate world fell hook, line, and sinker for the Realtor spin on this settlement, as if it was absolutely completely a done deal. And that is just not the case. We still have to hear from the Department of Justice, the Consumer Federation of America, which I actually did hear. They said some mildly positive things. And also, of course, the judge himself. Plus, we have the outstanding buyer commission lawsuits. Yeah, I pointed that out in the first thing I pointed out when I read the statement from NAR, that it only affected the seller lawsuits. And also, we have the outstanding home services issue. We're going to cut into CNBC in just a moment because they're going to be interviewing Kelman from Redfin. But I'm just here to tell you that if the best thing that you can take out of this right now is you should be focusing on sellers. Focus your marketing on sellers. Let's cut to Kelman, see what he has to say.
About changing how you're doing your business
CNBC
model. Tell us about what you're doing in reaction to this.
Volume here.
To consumers, there's so many people who called us over the weekend after the news of the settlement broke and said, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent. I want to hire you to sell homes directly to home buyers. We have a big website to do that, a bunch of software tools to do that. Let's get to work. That was the message this weekend.
But what are some of the anecdotes that you're hearing from consumers? I know there was a lot of confusion about it over the weekend, about buyer's agents, seller's agents, who pays who. Have you had to do a lot of explaining, or have you simply just answering their questions?
Well, mostly people have been asking if commissions are going to come down, if I still have to pay a buyer's agent when I list my home. Everyone's trying to figure out if this industry is really going to change. And anyone in the real estate industry has had the same experience, which is that my phone is blowing up. I'm getting text messages. I'm getting emails. Everyone wants to know, is this for real?
But what about buyer's agents? I mean, the argument is to be made that for first-time buyers, for perhaps people lower income who might not know about what kind of deals, how they're made, how negotiations are done, how escalation clauses are done, isn't a buyer's agent helpful for a lot of people?
Absolutely. We just think people ought to have a choice. We are buyer's agents too, so we know that people need guidance through the whole process, what they can afford, how an inspection contingency works. They want to tour listings offered by different brokers, and the only way they can do that today is through a buyer's agent. So obviously, many people are going to need that support, but they shouldn't have to hire someone. They should do it because they want to. And when they do that, they should have a voice in how much that agent gets paid. That's the premise of this reform in the industry.
Now, is it your opinion, as some of the headlines have been screaming, that this is going to slash commissions entirely and that the people who work for Redfin—
Oh, this is a really good question.
Millions of dollars?
Well, Redfin has saved consumers $1.6 billion in fees. So actually what we saw over the weekend is a higher affinity for Redfin, where all these people started asking us about listing their home, representing them as buyers, because they know they can get a deal from Redfin, and they feel like this news gave them permission to do so.
And explain that, just so our viewers know. Redfin has a standard commission, unlike the industry, which was anywhere from 5.
All right, so there's going on with an ad from Redfin, but the question was, do you have to pay an agent? And the answer is, Kelman's really good spin on this is basically buyers should have a voice in how much agents get paid because effectively they're getting paid through the purchase price. You know the cycle. So he's, by the way, master. I don't know if you're a fan of Redfin or not, but Kelman is a master of public relations. He's really super, super good at that. Very, very good. All right. So with that, I just want to get back to my headlines here. All last week, we had all these headlines: the big settlement, how it could impact you, Minnesota's realtors prepare. You go on YouTube and it's like Ryan Sarhant says, we need more transparency. Does the new rule provide for more transparency? I don't know. 6% commissions eliminated. I don't know about you, but I thought 6% commissions, first off, they're not standardized. And I don't remember doing my the last deal I got 6%. It's been a little while, right? I think 6% has already been eliminated in a lot of markets due to market forces. The game changer, Yahoo Finance says, but it's not a done deal. And I just want to be really perfectly clear where I stand on this, because I have had a lot of critical of the deal, and some people have come out to be, oh, you just want it to be the same. No, I'm critical of the deal because I don't think the deal goes far enough. All right. I could have a much more popular YouTube. I'd be much more popular in the real estate industry if I just wanted things to stay the same. Right, Anthony? But I would prefer no more cooperating commission. I just want to make it perfectly clear. I don't feel the deal goes far enough. Right. I just don't feel the deal goes far enough. And whenever you come up with these types of convoluted rule structures, you're going to have ways for people to get around it, right? You're going to have ways to people get around it, which was the video I did on Saturday night. Huge loophole in the NAR settlement. So many people were coming out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday saying this was awesome. I heard one of my favorite real estate YouTubers saying that this was awesome. They have a podcast every Wednesday. And literally on that podcast, they did a live stream on Friday, and they said this deal was awesome. And now he's come out with the story saying why the NAR settlement is disappointing. So the hangover is setting in, and people are realizing that the NAR spin wasn't as great as it seemed. It was a little bit over the top. And you know what? Inman found this TikToker agent from North Carolina, I believe. Let's give some press for her. Emily McAllister of Greenville, North Carolina. I really like this video. Let's hit play.
Considering a couple of years ago, NAR's main objective was to be more transparent when it came to commissions. And there were rulings in place that required public IDX sites to share what the buyer agent commission offered was. So if anything, this has created a scenario where realtors have more opportunity to be shady than they did a week ago. And
that's a really good point, because now there won't be transparency. Remember the push in the last couple of years to have the commission on the IDX website? That's not going to be there anymore. Remember, like, oh, we have to be transparent about the commissions. Let's put it on the website. Now this deal actually gets rid of that. Good point, Emily. Let's hit play.
And if you are under the impression that this ruling is going to bring a reduction in housing values to the market, you are sadly,
which was another big part of the spin. Oh, this is going to cut the commissions and lower the prices.
Mistaken, because commissions don't affect property values. If I go to a homeowner and say your house is worth $500,000, I'm going to charge X percentage to list the house, and they negotiate with me a lower percentage, we don't then list the house for whatever percentage less. $500,000. The house is still listed for $500,000 because market value is market value is market value. It doesn't matter what the commission is being paid out of that amount. The possibilities for this to be a complete shit show are endless. And to say
the possibilities for this to be a complete shit show, I think she said infinite, which is true, right? It is true. NAR came out, by the way. Thanks so much for joining us today. Somebody asks right off the bat, Mark asks, when will the Department of Justice weigh in? So that's a good question. Nobody really knows. In the No Select case versus MLS PIN, which occurred here in Massachusetts, where I'm broadcasting to you from, they took their sweet time. And when the proposed No Select statement, when the proposed No Select settlement came out, the same thing happened. Everyone assumed that behind closed doors, Department of Justice had cooperated with the plaintiff's attorneys and came up with that settlement. That was not true. And when the Department of Justice came out and said, no, we have problems, everyone was like, oh, really? And I think what you're going to, and so if they didn't play ball in the No Select statement with the plaintiff's attorneys, when the settlement was only $3 million, why should we assume that the Department of Justice behind closed doors is having some type of triangulated conference with the plaintiffs that are trying to settle for $418 million? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. That's good spin from the National Association, but it doesn't make sense. I don't think, I can't, have you read a statement from the Department of Justice in the last couple of days? I haven't. I did see a statement from the Consumer Federation America, who seems to have a lot of influence at the Department of Justice, and it seemed kind of mild, but they're going to respond in their own due course. And they actually got, thanks, Mark, they actually got high marks, no pun intended, Mark, for the quality of their statement in the No Select case. So I would imagine that you're going to get a very thoughtful statement from the Department of Justice relative to this proposed settlement. And that might throw in a big, huge wrench into the settlement. And this whole July deadline, that might never happen. Like, right. If following this for a year or more, I will tell you that, especially with anything legal, like there's always delays, right? You know, a long time ago, I decided not to go to law school. I'm too smart to go to law school. And one of the reasons why is because lawyers never get anything done on time, ever, right? It's just not in their nature. It's not part of their culture. For those of you who are agents or entrepreneurs and brokers, we are get things done people. We have a list, we cross it off, and that's how we operate, right? Task-oriented, accomplishment-oriented. Lawyers aren't really like that. And to say that this is all going to go down this summer, you know, I could be wrong. I would admit, you know, I could be wrong, but probably not. So the spin was so good from NAR, and everyone took the NAR hook and ran with it, from Yahoo to CNN, that NAR actually had to come out yesterday in a conference call with reporters and clarified the situation. NAR reps sought to dispel confusion and misinformation coming out of the March settlement announcement. Most importantly, that offers of compensation won't be prohibited on agent websites. So we talked about this in the live stream on Friday a little bit, and this is basically the loophole. Remember the video I did about the loophole right there, that loophole video there? Now, NAR comes out and clarifies the loophole because it's giant. While offers of compensation will be prohibited from the MLS starting in mid-July, okay, we'll see about that deadline. NAR told reporters that brokers and agents have other methods to negotiate compensation. The obvious ways would be phone calls and emails. Brokers and agents also may utilize other platforms such as home search portals to communicate compensation details. So you couldn't write it in the MLS, but you could somehow edit your Zillow listing. Maybe Zillow will add some type of functionality to amend your Zillow listing. That would be really interesting. And of course, I made a short about how somebody like put the compensation in the code, right? I have a 3-bedroom apartment, a 3-bedroom house for a % deal, right? So there's all sorts of ways that this can be affected. Affected brokerages and NAR partners did not get advance notice. Nobody got advance notice because you leaked it to the New York Times first for the public relations impact. And you didn't even have the courtesy, NAR, not that I'm a member, I'm gladly not a member, but you didn't even have the courtesy to send the email out to your own members first. You first leaked it to the New York Times. That's how much you care about your members. You leaked it to the New York Times first, and then you emailed your own members. Classy with the K. NAR wants everyone to read the settlement. This is complete bullshit. Because if they wanted everyone to read the settlement, they would have posted that first on their website, but they wanted the headlines. They wanted the that Friday morning, getting a copy of the settlement that Friday morning was a difficult thing to achieve. You could later that day, it leaked out, but if you wanted it Friday morning, and that was one of the big criticisms that I had, like I smell a rat, is because they didn't make the settlement available. Now they're telling everyone to read it, right? Baloney. You can't believe these people. All right, by the way, since we mentioned this at the top of the show, the remaining defendant in the bombshell commission lawsuit out of Kansas City is now seeking $4.7 billion with a B from Home Services, Warren Buffett. So the last defendant in the Sitzer-Burnett commission case said it anticipated a motion and will respond with its own court filings by April. Now, if I'm not remembering correctly, also, because I've been covering this story longer than a lot of these YouTubers out there. Yeah, hold on. Wait a second. I gotta go pat myself in the back. Home Services is challenging whether or not the case should have ever went to trial. And so basically this is now a game of chicken between lawyers, right? We're now asking you for $4.7 billion. And basically it's a game of chicken. You better drop your suit that, because I think Ketchmark is actually, by asking for so much money, I think Ketchmark is showing that he's a little bit nervous about the merits of the Home Services challenge about whether or not this case should ever go forward. But by the way, not to harp, because I am a huge fan of Rob Hahn, but in this article that he published yesterday, why the NAR settlement is disappointing, when will we address the number one problem for working realtors? And he goes on to say that the number one problem is that there's too many agents, which I find ironic because I'm pretty sure Rob Hahn is like a libertarian or something along those lines. And usually, like for libertarians, they let the market decide, right? Let the market decide. And the market will tell you how many agents there should be. That's kind of how I feel about it. Within some measure of consumer protection, we do have licensing standards. But I got to tell you, Rob, the problem in the industry is not that there's too many agents. The problem in the industry is that the National Association of Realtors was found guilty of running an antitrust cartel. That is the problem. It's not the number of agents. It's the fact that the major trade organization is a cartel. When are you going to figure that out? When are you going to admit that? That is the problem. That is the problem in our business, is that NAR is guilty of being a cartel. You could argue that there's too many agents or too few agents. Frankly, I think what we're seeing here, and I want to cover this later in the show, there's a lot of criticism about where did it go? Oh, I had it here somewhere. It went away. About not enough deals to support people financially. That's because we are in a transaction recession. I had this chart. It disappeared on me somewhere. We're in a transaction recession, right? We're at somewhere like 4 million transactions. Existing home sales come out at 10 o'clock this morning, by the way, and they're expected to drop just a teeny bit down to 3.9 million on an annualized basis. And if I could just find that chart, it'll be great. Hold on. Let me just find that chart for you. And when we're at that situation where there's just not a lot of transactions, there is a significant amount here's our chart here. There is a significant amount of economic pressure upon people who want this to work as a full-time job. Look at the problem is the volume of transactions, which has been crucified by our own Federal Reserve and how they're killing the housing market and the economy as large. That's another topic for all day. Let the market decide how many agents there are and stop acting like a cartel. So as you can see, housing transactions have just cratered since, let's see, November of 2021. Just look at that, just absolutely cratered. And everyone knows it. And some people want to protect their paychecks. And the one way to do that is to eliminate the competition through regulatory reform. Let's get rid of some agents. So let's talk about our big news of the day. And our big news of the day is the Federal Reserve meeting, which is coming up next. So set aside all of this lawsuit stuff. We have a spring market to look forward to, especially for those of us in the Northeast or northern tier of the country. The spring market is upon us, right? By the way, congratulations. My agents are smoking it right now, doing very well. Good job, folks. The Fed meeting is today. No one is expecting a rate hike today. But what I want you to really focus upon with this Fed meeting coming up, this meeting will likely be all about the Federal Open Market dot plot. What is the dot plot, Jack? What is a dot plot? Let's see if we can pick up the dot plot. The dot plot is basically, and this is an incredibly boring chart, but this is the dot plot, and it basically predicts where it basically shows you where the members of the Fed think interest rates are going. Basically shows you where the Fed thinks interest rates are going. And if you haven't noticed yet, the expectations for where interest rates are going have shifted. The conventional wisdom last fall was that we were going to see 6 rate cuts this year. Well, we're going to get 6 rate cuts. Yeah, I don't think so. Nobody is expecting a rate cut today. Basically, no one's expecting a rate cut in May, 7.5% only. June, you start to see a shift. But time after time, these numbers keep on getting pushed off. They keep on getting pushed off time after time. Over the last couple of days, where have we seen it here? Over the last couple of days, we have seen the 10-year push beyond recent resistance. So the resistance I had at 4.25, and now we're at 4.28. Some people call resistance more like 4.3. We were above 4.3. We're in a holding pattern right now based upon the afternoon news because the Fed comes out today about 2 o'clock. There will be a lot of attention in the finance world about what the dot plot says, and also they have their, their quarterly report of economic predictions or whatever, the SEP. That is going to impact your spring market as an agent. Sure. Are your clients asking you about commission rates and everything? Yeah. But they're also going to be asking you about interest rates. And that is going to affect your clients, buyers and sellers as well. And I really think that you need to be kind of plugged into what's going on when it comes to interest rates. And the simple fact of the matter is, they've crept back up again. Here's your chart from Mortgage News Daily. We are just over 7% again, unfortunately. Mortgage demand drops as interest rates rise again, but Fed announcement will be key for spring market. Absolutely. By the way, I love your comments, and if anybody wants to jump in with a comment, that'd be fantastic. Where is I going with that? Well, all right. So I guess what I want to tell you is today, existing home sales. And keep a very close eye on the news out of the Fed this afternoon relative to where interest rates go. You might see a shift in where that dot plot is headed. I think we are going to see a shift in where the dot plot is headed. And that shift is going to mean fewer rate cuts this year. And if you're not getting this vibe out there on Twitter or whatever websites that you show, The simple fact of the matter is we're not anywhere near the 2% federal target on inflation. And the consumer price index and the producer price index keep on coming in hot. We're not getting there, and we're not going to get there. And if we're not going to get 6 rate hikes, can't happen. We just don't have the time in the calendar with an election year. They're not going to cut that close to the election. That's not going to happen. And 7% or somewhere in the high 6s is here for good. I remember I went to Anthony Lamacchia's event and I heard whatever his name is, the mortgage expert guy, and he's like, 5% is around the. No, it's not. It's not around the corner. 7% or high 6s is here for the foreseeable future. And I'm going to tell you that what's going to happen. The federal government is going to continue to spend like no tomorrow, because in an election year, the job of the Fed is to reelect the incumbent, no matter who they are. Let me say that again. In an election year, the job of the Fed is to reelect the incumbent, no matter who they are, in whatever party they're in. It doesn't matter. So they're going to do everything to prop up the country over the next 7.5 months. That is going to be tremendously expensive. And then we'll have our recession come early next year. Yeah. Am I the only one that sees this? But that seems crystal clear to me. That is crystal clear to me. Absolutely. And by doing that, we're going to borrow a lot of money, devalue our existing dollars, and that is going to keep interest rates up and or even higher than they are now. All right, so let's see. We have another comment here. This could be the new normal for a while. Absolutely. I think, it is the new normal. If you think you're going back, and for those of you who are like 25 to 40 and years old, and you've never lived in an interest rate environment of 7%, I hate to say it, but when you go back and you look at like the 50-year chart, 7% is kind of normal. It's actually slightly lower than normal. I remember when I bought this house where I'm broadcasting to you now. I bought this house in 2002, and I got an interest rate. What was it? 5.5, 5 3/4. I think it was 5 3/4. And I almost fell over. I was like, oh yeah, man, winner chicken dinner. And this house is where I wanted to be, and still here now, 22 years later. And I don't pay 5, and I got a lower rate since then, but much lower. Which why would I move at this point, right? And I'm just here to tell you, like 7%, you might think that is high if you're a 33-year-old because you're used to 2%. Yeah, this is the new normal. Thank you very much, Uber Realty, for chipping that in. All right, hey, you have a great day. Watch that Fed Open Market Committee thing. I hope I'm your end game for real estate news. I want to be your, how's it go? First string, your A team. I want to be your first string in your A team. I want to be your end game for real estate news. I'm not just making one video last week. I've been covering this for a year. I'm glad you subscribed. Go make some money. Have a great day. Bye-bye.